What are the essentials you need in a disaster preparedness kit? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about exactly what it is you need according to FEMA in any kind of an emergency preparedness kit, just in case something were to occur. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're going to talk about your disaster kit essentials. What do you actually need in your kit to be prepared according to FEMA? This is information that's out there for the public, for everybody to see, and FEMA has put it out there as these items being necessary for any kind of an emergency preparedness kit. And after the events that we've been seeing over the past year, as well as what has just happened in Texas, I thought it would be good to go back and actually touch base on some of the basics and talk about even what FEMA suggests we should have in the sense of basic preps for any natural disaster or emergency situation. So if you're preparing for any kind of an emergency or a disaster of any kind, and you just want to make sure that you're better off the next time around, then hit the subscribe button below so that way we can all keep preparing as best as we can together. Not everything has to be preparing for actual SHTF, end of the world style scenarios, but a lot of us still don't even prepare for the basic necessities in case there's a random natural occurrence, okay? And FEMA has actually put this list out there for everybody to see, so I'll link that down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment so you can access that and actually evaluate whether or not you have any of these basic items in your disaster preparedness kit, okay? So first things first in the list of items that FEMA suggests, and that's going to be at least 1 gallon of water per person per day, okay? So now, this is basically built around a 3-day emergency. So what they're saying is that for every person in your household, you need 3 gallons of water. And this is just to get through 3 days. It's kind of what FEMA seems to have set as their little guideline for getting through an emergency. But if you were in Texas over the last week, you know things can last a lot longer than 3 days. And the supply chain is still trying to get caught back up. So obviously preparing for longer is always better, but this is just going off of the basics that FEMA has put out there for all of you to see. Okay, so 1 gallon per person per day is the minimum. Understand that's not going to really give you access to being able to flush toilets or bathe or anything like that. It's just for hydration purposes and survival, okay? So moving on from there, you're going to have food, at least 3 days worth of food. Well, each person is supposed to consume 2,000 calories a day on average. So you need to make sure that however many people you have in your family, you've got 2,000 calories worth of non-perishable food available for them for at least 3 days according to FEMA. Like I said, this is a preparedness channel. We prepare for much longer term events than just 3 days, but I'm just going off of what the guidelines say and trying to get you at least aware of what you should at least start with, okay? So these are survival ration bars. You can find these at places all over the place. You can get these ones specifically, you can get at Walmart, you can order these ones online, and I will be linking some of these things down below in the description and the pinned comment as well. So if there's things you see here today, you can pick them up and try to be better prepared. Now, this actually provides 2,400 calories worth of food. This provides 3,600 calories worth of food. So you can see these two together is 6,000 calories of non-perishable food that will get somebody through 3 days if need be. It doesn't take up a lot of space. Of course, it doesn't taste very good, but it has the basic sustenance you need in order to survive for 3 days with rations, okay? So those are what I suggest in the sense of having emergency food available because they don't perish for 5 years and they also have a lot of calories packed into a tiny amount of space, okay? So moving on from there, they also suggest that you have a battery powered or hand crank powered emergency radio with NOAA weather emergency alerts programmed into it. Now this is actually battery powered. It also has a solar panel. It also has the hand crank, okay? And so you can recharge it if need be using the crank. This is very monotonous and difficult to do for long periods of time. However, it is an option. And then you also have the solar capability if need be. And then what you can do is use this for AM, FM radio to listen in to see what's happening when it comes to the emergency that's going on around you. Obviously, it's gonna have an antenna or something like that. You can program it to wherever you need it to be. And they work. I mean, they're basic machines. They don't need a lot of maintenance or anything like that. They just sit there and wait for your uses when you need them. Now, one thing that's great about this particular model, this is an Iron Snow. It's just a generic emergency radio, but it does have charging capability. So you can actually charge your USB devices right here on the emergency radio. So this helps in the sense of being able to keep your phones charged or your flashlights charged or whatever else it might be, while also having access to emergency radio services. So this is something that FEMA also suggests that you have. Now moving on from there, it's going to be a flashlight. Now this does also have a flashlight on it, okay? So basic flashlight, not very bright, but it'll get the job done if you're in complete darkness and you need to work your way around some kind of an obstacle or something. You'll get what you need with that light, but you do want a proprietary light. You want something that's main function is just being a flashlight because it'll have better use for you. So right here, if you want something more tactical and it's going to be very bright and even capable in the sense of self-defense, this is a Through Night BSS V4. BSS is Black Scout Survival, another excellent preparedness channel on YouTube. So he has awesome products like this one he puts out there. So if you want to check out his channel, I'll do a little thingy here on the screen, but I'll also make sure you have a link to this light if you want to check it out as well. It's extremely bright, and it will get you through any kind of an emergency because it also has USB recharging on it. So even if you run out of batteries, as long as you have your emergency radio and the correct USB cable, you can charge this light with this light. So good things to have, definitely good in the sense of self-defense as well. But if you want something more practical, maybe you're not into anything that's tactical, I like Maglite still. Excellent company, American made. You still can't go wrong with Maglite. This is an LED version. And what's great about Maglite is this takes 2 AA batteries. Of course, you would have to change those out in order to get what you need. It can be a very bright light still in the sense of being an LED. But what I like about this particular model is that when you unscrew the cap, you get a candle, basically. They call this candle mode. And then you can sit the light right inside of its own cap, and it sits there like a little miniature lantern. So definitely a good emergency kit light because it will light up an entire room when there's just darkness and give everybody some light to share rather than just being a focused beam. So another great flashlight option, okay? And you can understand why flashlights are so important because when the power goes out and it gets dark, that's when accidents happen. And if you can't see in order to maybe locate your food or your water that you have stored away for your disaster preparedness kit, then it's not gonna do you any good. So make sure you have a quality flashlight. Let's see, moving on from there. Obviously, if you have electronics, you need extra batteries, okay? So just make sure you stock up on batteries while you can. These are easy to come by right now when the grid is up and when there's not a disaster occurring, but when hurricanes come and when things like the winter storm Uri in Texas occur, batteries disappear very quickly off store shelves. So when times are good, you need to go ahead and stock up on these. Even just order them online. These are just basic Amazon batteries, but you know what? They're really cheap. You can get a ton of them for a good deal, and it's just worth having more and more of these around. Most of my electronic gear is rechargeable or solar or has some kind of renewable energy concept to it because I don't like the idea of batteries eventually just running out. However, having just solid state batteries that are good to go is an important thing as well because you can just replace them right away and get back to what it is you needed to do rather than waiting on something to be recharged. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, moving on from there. The next thing on FEMA's list, this isn't my list, this is FEMA's list, okay? The next thing on their list is to have a whistle. Make sure you have a whistle so you can signal for help in an emergency. Now, there has been many times where something like a whistle has saved somebody's life, especially out in the wilderness when people get lost and they're trying to be found and they're blowing their whistle, and that's what somebody finally hears and leads them to them based on the source of the sound. So maybe an earthquake occurs and a building collapses and you're trapped under the rubble, but you have access to a whistle. You can at least put out as much sound as you can and make sure that people who are looking for you can find you. So it's still a good thing to have, and it's why I actually still have a whistle. It's not something that's necessarily unnecessary in any kind of an emergency kit. See, you can't go wrong. Okay, next, plastic sheeting and duct tape, okay? Now, I'm doing this in a little bit of a different order, but plastic sheeting and duct tape. So duct tape obviously has great uses in a million ways. It can do anything from repairing something that's broken to slowing the bleeding of a wound, or for this purpose, what FEMA is trying to say you use it for is to seal off a room, okay? So if you're in a shelter in place because of contamination of some kind, there's some kind of an event where there's either dust or radioactive particles or who knows what else, you can use the duct tape to seal off your windows and then use plastic sheeting to cover them as well to make sure that your home is as impermeable as possible. And they suggest going into the smallest room in the house with the least amount of windows and sealing everything off, including doorways and windows, okay? So plastic sheeting is perfect for that, but if you have things like industrial Trash bags, you can cut them to size to make sure that that works for you as well. Or even if you have like emergency blankets, like the Mylar style ones, these are very impermeable also, so you can actually tape these against the windows and seal them off also. So it's great to have multi-use items other than just having plastic sheeting for one sole purpose, when you can have things that do a similar job that have other purposes as well. So just keep that in mind. Now, one other thing they want you to have in your kit is going to be a dust mask, okay? So obviously we all know the deal with masks over the past year. They've been a huge part of what's going on in our society, and this is an N95 dust mask. This is the actual mask that they suggest in the sense of trying to get through a collapse of a building or something along those lines. Maybe it's smoke, there's a wildfire or something like that. Make sure you have a way to filter out some of those particulates to make your breathing air a little bit safer for your lungs. So that's the concept behind the dust mask for an emergency preparedness kit. So keep that in mind, okay? Yes, there's other uses for them as well, but that's the main driver behind why they say it should be in your disaster kit. Okay, moving on from there. Moist towelettes. So if you have kids, of course, baby wipes do the job, and of course, you know, they were hard to come by back in March, okay? So think about that, but wipes are important because you want to be able to sanitize and stay clean even if the water's not running, even if there's no power for the heated water or anything like that. You can use baby wipes to get by and at least keep yourself clean. Especially if you get injured during an emergency, it's important to keep the wound and the area around the wound clean, and baby wipes or similar moist wipes can help you do that, okay? So that's something they suggest, as well as trash bags, right, with ties to make sure that you can get rid of anything related to sanitation. So what they're talking about there is, of course, things like toilet paper and stuff like that that's been used. You need to have trash bags so you can get rid of it or seal it off so that it's at least contained in one area. It's basically a biohazard at that point, and that's why they suggest having this for you, okay? So, moving on from there, wrench or pliers in order to turn off utilities. So you want something adjustable. So, oh, where did I put that wrench? Well, I had a wrench on the table and I already used it, but here's some needle nose pliers. So keep that in mind, okay? You need some kind of pliers or wrench in order to shut off utilities. They do make emergency gas keys in case you're in an area that's prone to earthquakes, where you can shut off your gas really quickly and make sure that there's not going to be a leak in your house. It could lead to something like an explosion or carbon monoxide poisoning. So very important to have a gas key if you have gas hooked up to your house. The home I'm in currently is mostly electric, but you still want to have access to a wrench. I suggest something adjustable. Needle nose pliers are not the best way to go. They'll still get the job done better than nothing, but you want an adjustable wrench most likely so that you can handle a variety of different sizes of bolts or nuts or whatever else you might need to adjust with that wrench in order to make sure that you can turn off your utilities properly, okay? So moving on from there, manual can opener. Manual can opener, not an automatic. They want to make sure it's man-powered because if there is no power, you need to still be able to access those non-perishable foods. Now, obviously, I don't need a can opener for the foods I have right here, but a lot of people just stash away canned foods as their non-perishables for emergencies. And of course, I have tons of canned food as well. So having can openers is important, and this is a backup can opener. You should have more than one can opener. Trust me on that. You need tons of can openers because they do eventually break. They do go bad, and it's important to be able to still access that food easily without hurting yourself by trying to use a knife or something along those lines. So, can openers also on the list. Next is going to be local maps, okay? So I have some local maps all over the place. The whole idea behind local maps is just knowing where you need to go in case there is an emergency. You want to make sure you have maps that are for your shelters in case maybe you need to go to a tornado shelter or something like that. You need to have maps that can get you to the hospital. You need to have maps that can get you to food or supplies, whatever it might be. Make sure you have maps that are pertinent to your area, and make sure you have maps that'll get you exactly where you need to go. So keep that in mind, and don't have the maps here on the table, but it's important to have maps. Trust me on that. Okay. And then the last thing on their list is cell phone with backup batteries or charger. Okay. So obviously you got to have a cell phone. Very good to have. This is one of my wife's old cell phones. And then you want to have your charger as well. So an extra charger, not just the one you use at your house every day, but the one that just sits in your disaster kit ready to be used in case you have to grab it and go or whatever that might mean. Okay. So make sure you have those things. Now listen. These are all basics. These are reminders of things that we should all have. This is FEMA. This isn't, the oligarchy of preparedness. This is the government entity that's putting out a generic list just to say, hey, at least have this, okay? This doesn't end there. This is not where preparedness ends. There's still a lot more to it. And even FEMA had to admit that. So back in June of 2020, they actually amended this list and added an entire new section because of what happened during the pandemic. And this is all before whatever just happened in Texas, but there's still some items on here that we at least need to talk about to make sure that you're thinking about them and that you're aware of them, because even FEMA had to come out and add an additional almost twice the size list just to make sure that everything was covered, okay? So think about this. None of this mattered to them until just this past year. And if it isn't something you have, you should definitely think about it, because they're actually putting it out there as additional preparedness that you need. So that list, okay, includes masks, we all know that, okay, prescription medications, over-the-counter medications, infant formula, diapers, wipes, and rash cream, because all of these things, all of them, were very hard to get back in March of last year, okay? Pet food with extra water for your pets. So not just your water, but water for your pets as well. Let's see, cash and traveler's checks to make sure that you can spend when things like the debit card systems go down. Just ask a bunch of Texans right now how that worked out in the sense of being able to get gas or anything else when all the power was out, okay? Important documents, you need to have those as well to make sure that you can prove who your children are, who you're married to, you can get your social security numbers, your birth certificates, make sure you have all those things stashed away somewhere safe that you know you can grab quickly, okay? Sleeping bag or blanket per person. They want to make sure that you can stay warm no matter what the conditions are outside, so make sure everybody has some kind of a way to stay warm and sleep comfortably, okay? A complete change of clothes, including sturdy shoes. Definitely important, we all know that. Fire extinguisher, waterproof matches, feminine supplies, mess kits, paper plates, plastic silverware, and paper cups, papers and pencils, books, games, and activities for kids. They added all of that just this past year. So, I wanted to bring this to your attention so you can understand that when a government entity is telling us these things, the government is literally saying, this is what you need. We should at least look at that and start there, because that's the bare minimum. That's the government trying to buy a little more time for every single person out there that they have a responsibility to as a taxpayer. So the government is literally saying, just give us like 3 days, please. We really just need like 3 days so we can get everything together and figure out what we're doing with our lives so we can come save you. That is exactly what they're putting out there. And honestly, my preparedness and your preparedness as well should go much further than just 3 days. But this is the baseline. This is what they're putting out as the bare minimum. And I guarantee you, look in the mirror and look at your friends and family and look at your coworkers and anybody else you affiliate with. How many of these people do you think have every single item on the list we just talked about? Even the preliminary list, the one that just includes these items here, how much do you think there is? This first aid kit, very important, also on the list. And the first aid kit is something that you can build yourself, or you can just buy one of these generic ones and at least have something. I guarantee a lot of people don't even have that. And I also guarantee you I skipped first aid kit on FEMA's list, because now we're talking about it and now I did not skip it on the list. So keep this in mind. I wanted to bring all this to your attention. I'm gonna link a bunch of these items in the description in the comment below, so that way if you're interested in any of the things you see on the table here or any of the things in the list that I added onto it, that FEMA added onto it back in June, you can look at those items and then purchase them from wherever you would like. But I do appreciate all the support that this channel receives. I hope this all helps everybody out there at least start with a baseline. You guys are awesome. Anyone who's actually watching a channel like this one that's concerned about preparedness and wants to be more prepared for whatever might occur, I appreciate you. This is what we need to do to be more self-sufficient, more self-reliant, and to take better care of ourselves and our families when there's a time of need. So thank you for doing your part, and let's see what we can do to help our neighbors and help the people around us be better prepared as well, so as a community we can all be better off no matter what happens in the future. So if you have anything else to add to the list, even though this is FEMA's list, not mine, FEMA's, leave it in the comments below. Otherwise, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.